All right, and good evening, and welcome to round 6 of the Automobilista Australia TCR Oz Series. Here we are. As you can see on your screen, we are at Walsh Plains, or better known as Symmons Plains here in Tasmania. Got about 2.5 minutes remaining in the practice sessions, and being a track which essentially only has 3-4 corners, times are very, very close, with Foley currently fastest on a 56.1. Matt Williams, Brendan Ross, all within a tenth of a second. Then we have Thomas Paul returning after he made the first round, I believe, in a guest car, and he's here again this evening, so it's good to see him around. He's 2 tenths back, followed by Termo, who's 4 tenths, Cracker 5 tenths, Netherelmian 6 tenths, Mike Coulston 8 tenths adrift. Then we have Gary Neville 1.3, Joyner 1.4, and Glenn Miles 2.2 second drift. Only 11 cars at the moment. Hopefully we have a couple of drivers join in the last 1.5 minutes of practice and in the warm-up as well. But before we obviously flip over obviously to what's going on the screen, it's a good time as any to check out the Symmons Plains circuit. As you can see, not a very technical one. Not very long, but is going to be very, very interesting. The braking is mightily important. Turn 1 is going to be one where you're going to need to get on that throttle ASAP once you're off the brake, because it's going to be very easy to lose the rear end over that little crest and bump as you move into the left-hander there. And then we have again that hairpin after that long straight. Again, prime passing opportunity, but it's also an opportunity to set up a move down the back straight into the penultimate corner as well. I'm sure we will see quite a number of drivers making just a little bit of head-to-tail contact into that hairpin, whether it be on lap 1 or the final lap of the race, as obviously the concertina effect will be in full force at that hairpin. And obviously, speaking of the penultimate corner, again, that's another prime passing opportunity. And with the nature of this circuit, nature of these cars and the racing, we could see a pass into there, in the dying stages of a race. And if you're going to set up a move and it's the last lap, you probably don't want to do it at the hairpin, because it will give the guy you've just passed an opportunity into that corner, into the penultimate corner. So you want to make it right here at that penultimate corner right there. As you can see on your screen as well, AMS Oz record 50.3. That was with a different version of the Symmons Plains circuit in the Super V8 Holden VF by myself, Lewis Wedding. Track length 2.41 kilometers, and it's going to be a very punchy and hopefully entertaining round here in Tasmania. Alright, well, session has ended, and now we will tick over to the qualifying session. And now we wait. Obviously 10 minutes. Drivers get one chance to set a lap, which will set the grid for the first race. So we won't go over the championship standings just yet. We will go over that in the warm-up session. Not much has changed since the last full broadcast, with Foley still well out in the championship lead. But I do believe Matt Williams took race 2 in that one, so he's got his second victory of the year, which is good to see some different winners out there. Alright, still waiting for a number of the drivers. Normally we have people just queuing up at the end of the pit lane, but today drivers are very, very relaxed. And don't seem to be too fussed about when they want to set a lap time, which is quite weird for Automobilista Australia, it has to be said. Because normally we have drivers queuing up. So still waiting on a driver to go out. Looks like it's going to be a very boring opening couple minutes here. Do apologise. The drivers are letting us down massively here. Only 11 cars on the grid. Hold on. We've got Luke Joyner in the Matt Harvey Repair and Tune Holden Astra will be the first man out in qualifying. He'll be the first man to show everybody on the stream just how this Symmons Plains circuit is. So it goes through the opening couple of corners now. Coming down to the hairpin. Just weaving his tyres, trying to get a little bit of heat into the fronts and into the rear tyres as well. I reckon we'll see a number of drivers in qualifying just outrate themselves, trying to go as deep as possible into the hairpin. You can go a little deep in there and sort of run a wideish mid-corner line and get away with it, but you've really got to get that nose in and get on the powers early as you can without understeering wide on the exit for this nice long run here into the penultimate corner. Alright, so Luke Joyner about to start his lap. So nice opening stanza through the first couple corners. And now begins his run to the hairpin. Looks like he's got the Peugeot guest car at the hairpin in front of him. Shouldn't get in his way. That'll be Thomas Paul. 21.5 in the first split for Luke Joyner. Fortunately, haven't got live races playing ball this evening. Just a bit unfortunate. So I'm not going to be able to give you guys live updates on the lap times that people are setting, either in qualifying or the race. But we shall push on. Joining out into the penultimate corner. 44.4 is his time at the second split. And now through the final couple corners. Nice clean lap. And that will be 57.2. Probably want to be in the 56s around here, but he didn't mess his lap up, so it should hold him in good stead. Alright, Mike Coulson out on the circuit. He hasn't had much track time, joining very, very late as well as Luke Joyner. Half a tenth down. How's his last couple corners going to compare to Joyner in the Astra? Favourably, so he's found about a tenth and a half there, and for now he jumps into provisional pole position. And now we've got Thomas Paul in the Peugeot, which in real life will debut at the Bend, I believe, in a couple of weeks' time. And he's 3.1 seconds down, so he's obviously made a mistake. Some are using a lot of the curve at the penultimate corner. We've got Cracker as well. First man into the 56 with the 56.9. Paul crosses the line, and that is a 1 minute point 3, so he's quite a ways off. So he must have made a mistake somewhere, because I do believe he was actually a bit faster than that in practice. So he's made a mistake somewhere, and unfortunately he'll be starting towards the back end of the field, unless there's a number of errors out there. We've got Turner out on the track. Looks like Glenn Miles for Playboy Racing also leaving the pits. Well, Thomas Paul going out for another lap. He's half a second up on Cracker's time, but obviously you only get time. We only get enough laps for one lap, as we see Netherelmian leave the pits. So Paul will be kicking himself for that mistake that we didn't pick up. I'd say, yeah, he'll be quite frustrated with that, because half a second up on that second lap there. So I'm going to hazard a guess he made a mistake at turn 1 and 2 there. And that dropped him all that time. Alright, now it's Termo's turn for MPC Castrol Racing. Now, in the championship, he's very, very close to quite a number of drivers, and he'll be hoping for a nice, clean round. His main protagonist is Steve Bolger, not here this evening, so he should jump clear of him, and he is 2 tenths up in the first split. So, good start for Termo. He's got Netherelmian just driving around slowly at the moment. And the cars, as you can see, not quite as quick as a supercar. They look like they're coming at you so slow out of that hairpin. But they are flat stick down here into the penultimate corner. And Termo's well down, so perhaps not a good run through the hairpin, a mistake of some sort, so he got out of the throttle. As that is a lot of time to lose at the hairpin, and that's going to drop him well down. So not a good run for Turmo, 59.1. So I don't know what had happened there. Perhaps he did get out of the throttle out of the hairpin. Anyway, Glenn Miles, next man to set a lap. And let's see how he's going. 6/10 off, which will put him behind Joyner, but in front of Turmo. And not bad, 57.8 for Glenn Miles, 9/10 off Cracker's time, so not bad. And a good effort for Glenn Miles out there. And now the next man, Nether Elmian, to set a lap. I haven't got any, actually I do have a split time. He's a couple tenths off the fastest first sector, and again, about pretty much 4 tenths off in the middle sector. Is wide at penultimate corner, holds onto it just. He's lucky that's a front wheel drive, because if it was rear wheel drive, he was going around. So very aggressive, but it's cost him time, and he will start from at least 5th position, and he'll be a little bit annoyed with himself. Speaking of Nether Elmian as well, he's now up into 3rd in the championship, so he's had a number of impressive drives of late, and he's been very, very consistent, and now 3rd in the championship, so fair effort from him. And now got Gary Neville on a lap. As you can see, all the FCR cars now leaving the pits. And Gary Neville half a tenth up. Bit of a front wheel spinning there coming out of the hairpin. Now this is where Turmo lost a lot of time after being a couple tenths up over Cracker. So interesting to see how he fares in the middle sector here, Gary Neville. Four tenths down, so again, not an ideal run through and out of the hairpin for Gary Neville. But that will, if he maintains that gap between himself and Cracker, it will slot him in 3rd. No, lost a lot of time in that final sector, and he'll be unhappy with that one. So we've got Ross and Williams about to settle out, and Foley's just started his, and he's had a massive mistake coming into turn 1, so I don't think it'll be pole position. So a big mistake. That'll start him somewhere in the middle, I'd assume. He had set the fastest time of the weekend, which I believe was a 56.1 or a 56.0. It's in that range, and he's half a second down in the first split. So he'll be quite frustrated. We've got Ross half a second up and Williams 2 tenths up, but Williams has the slipstream, so all Williams has to do really is just pull it up at the penultimate corner, and Williams will gain back a bit of time on Brendan Ross. But we will jump to Brendan Foley, who's lost a tenth in that middle sector, so Cracker absolutely mighty in that middle sector. And Williams 2 tenths down, up, and Ross 5 tenths up. So Foley only can manage 4th with that. Ross crosses the line, 56.4, and Williams a 56.8. So a little bit of a mixed up grid with Foley starting in P6. Ross was able to do the business, as was Matt Williams. But Williams probably be a little bit disappointed having the tow for those laps, or for that lap I should say, but couldn't quite capitalise on it. But Brendan Ross will start race 1 from pole position. Matt Williams alongside him, and then a very solid effort from Cracker will start himself. He'll start from 3rd position on the grid. Mike Coulston in 4th. Luke Joyner in 5th. All those guys had solid laps. They didn't make a mistake, and they gave them every opportunity to have a decent starting spot. And because of Foley's mistake, Nether Elmian's mistake, and Turmo's mistakes, as well as Thomas Paul, they'll start in very solid positions. While Foley, he's got a couple cars to pass and gives Brendan Ross every opportunity to make back some points in the championship standings. Alright, now with that and the conclusion of qualifying, there is still, time has just expired in qualifying, but it will probably tick over in the next minute or two. But we'll just take a short break as conduct the driver's briefing, but we shall be back with a little roundup of the championship standings, and of course race 1, and then subsequently race 2 of round 6 of the Automobilista Australia TCR Oz Series. Don't go away. All right, and welcome back to Automobilist Australia TCR Oz Series here at Brian Walsh Plains. I was going to say Symmons Plains, but it is Brian Walsh Plains, who is not here this evening. He wants this circuit in every single series that we run, regardless of whether the cars are suited or not. And it's in this series, and he's not here. So poor effort from Brian Walsh. I'm a bit disappointed he's not here for his own track, but hopefully we do see him. Obviously, I believe there's supercars this Thursday. Hopefully he's around for that one. All right, just to go over the championship standings, as you can see on your screen, Brenton Foley has a massive lead in the championship standings, and if I was any good at maths, I would probably say that he's almost clinched the championship, but my maths ain't that great. But there it is, Foley 438, followed by teammate Brendan Ross in second. It's been like that for a large portion of the season, both Foley and Ross first and second, but the real mover of the past few rounds has been Netherelmian, who has been in the midfield for most of it, but as the season's gone on, and particularly the last couple of rounds with picking up a podium, I believe, at Malala, and then some other decent results in the last couple of rounds, he's moved up now into third place. And that's no mean feat, considering Matt Williams has won 2 races this season, but Williams has had a couple DNFs and poor rounds as well. Dwayne Davies, another one who was in third for a lot of the championship, has now dropped down to 5th place after the last round on 248 points. He's got 19 points over Turmo. And Turmo's sort of at the head of another little tier of cars with Steve Bolger only 2 points adrift and Luke Joyner 3 points adrift. Unfortunately, no Steve Bolger this evening, which is good for Turmo, as they won't have Bolger running into him like he did at Phillip Island. But certainly in terms of that little battle, a bit disappointing that it won't remain close, at least for this round anyway. And Luke Joyner, again, doing a solid job. Hasn't had too much practice for this round, so he'll be hoping to once again just put in a couple solid races. And as we've seen, he generally gets faster as the weekend progresses. Mike Coulson, another one. He's missed a round, I believe, so not bad for him to be on 193 points. So he sits 9th in the championship with a 23-point gap over Gary Neville. Flipping the page, we've got Cracker, who's also missed a round or two on 160. So he's got a pretty sizable gap in front and a massive gap behind him, which is occupied by Glenn Miles on 114, who had a sizable gap over teammate Brian Walsh. And Walsh, after the last couple of rounds, has closed it up to within 1 point. But Brian Walsh not here this evening, so that will open up once again should Glenn Miles just finish either race this evening. And then we have Steve Burko on 103. He's not here this evening, unfortunately, and neither is Zach Ross. So they're on 103 and 95. Both those guys in the Hondas for Dragon Racing Team. And then Lime Mitch on 92 points. He's in the guest car. Rhodey on 75. Brownie on 70. And then Scott Nolan and Corey Preston, who have not been seen since the first round, on 68 and 64 points. All right, and then over the page to the team standings. As you can see, no surprise really with FCR Team Scrouse on 746 points and pretty much a shoo-in for the team championship, followed by their stablemate FCR Motorsport. Obviously, Team Scrouse contains first and second drivers in the championship with Brenton Foley and Brendan Ross. FCR Motorsport contains Gary Neville and Matt Williams, and also had Ricky Slick in there as well. Then we have the single car team of Netherelmian for Outworld Racing Team on 286, followed by D2R with Dwayne Davies, the sole occupant in that car, on 248. In fifth, Cracker Racing Team on 230 points. That heads a angry little pack behind him, or behind them I should say, with Cracker and Brownie as the drivers. No Brownie this evening, so Cracker will be flying the flag for his own team. And then we have Melbourne Performance Centre Castrol Racing with Turmo, another single car team on 229. Gravel Rash Racing on 227. Playboy Racing also on 227. Matt Harvey Repair and Tune on 226. And Dragon Racing Team on 198. Alright, well that has timed us perfectly to the session ticking over. And now we just wait for the drivers to form up onto the grid. As we begin, or we wait for the beginning of race 1 of round 6 at Walsh Plains. As you can see, a number of the drivers already forming up onto the grid. And a staggered grid here. Not quite realistic, but the best Symmons Plains that we have available. Anyway, and now the formation lap. Brendan Ross will get us underway for the formation lap and race 1 here at Walsh Plains. Alright, just to go and run through the grid for everybody playing at home. We've got Brendan Ross will start from pole position, followed by Matt Williams. And then Cracker will start from 3rd place. Put a solid lap together and is rewarded with 3rd place. He's only beaten right at the end by the FCR Team Scrouse and FCR Motorsport drivers. And we have Mike Coulston starting in 4th in the Sol Alfa Romeo this evening, followed by Luke Joyner in the only Holden Astra in the field. He'll start from 5th. Brenton Foley mucked up his lap as we just cut to him at turn 1. Lost it under braking, but was able to still put in a lap that was good enough for 6th place. And in P7, I believe Glenn Miles' best qualifying efforts at Automobilista Australia in a main series. So good solid effort from him. And he wasn't too far off lap time wise either. And behind him, Gary Neville in 8th. Netherrealmian in 9th. Turmo in 10th. And Thomas Paul, who has the pace to run towards the front end of the field. He'll start from the back after he made a mistake that we didn't catch on screen in the 308, in the Peugeot 308. Alright, haven't got the best camera available for the start, so we'll have to make do with this one. Right, 1 light, 2, 3, 4. Away we go, and a lot of wheel spin for Brendan Ross. And Williams having a look up the inside into turn 1, and Williams into the lead. A little bit of contact in Biff and Barge, and we've got one of the FCR cars around. We've got Mike Coulston around, so they're well back. Ross has held on for now, and the 2 FCR cars have got a bit of a gap as Williams looks to make a move. We're 3 wide into the hairpin at the back, and Williams and Ross having a drag down the back straight. So that will continue to penultimate corner. In fact, Williams pulling in a Joyner, a distant 3rd, but he's got Brenton Foley, who's up 2 spots, missing his front splitter, but that shouldn't cause too much harm to his car. And Thomas Paul, fantastic start. He's up 6 spots and done all the dirty work he needed to do to give himself a solid result. But Cracker having a look up the inside, but not quite close enough to make a move. Foley has gotten past Luke Joyner, and Joyner now going to have to contend with a hard charging and fast starting Thomas Paul. It's at the front though. Williams are not letting Ross get away. They continue to battle. And now we've got Joyner trying to make a move to get that position back on Thomas Paul. Thomas Paul holding on around the outside. It is a bit like a motocross berm, that hairpin. A bit of contact that looked like between Neville and Glenn Miles at the hairpin there. And it sent Neville just wide a little bit. So we'll just have a look at that on the replay. Yeah, just a little bit of contact there between the two. Now Neville trying to make the move into the penultimate corner. Neville not quite close enough to make the move stick, but Miles outbrakes himself, loses the back end, and Neville takes 9th position away from him. Oh, and a big lose as Paul avoids the wall on the inside and somehow holds on to the position, at least for now, but Joyner will take it. And Cracker, he wants a piece of that action as well. And Paul sort of cuts across the front of him. And now he's going to try and force Cracker to go around the outside. Cracker just ahead of him at the moment. But Paul outbrakes Cracker into the hairpin and holds on to P5 for now. And with that going on, that's allowing Foley just to edge away from him and get away. Foley 3.2 behind Brendan Ross and Matt Williams as they are side by side. And Williams now into the lead. And with such big gaps in the championship, I don't think we'll see any kind of team orders. And Foley, as we see Ross, a big lock up and almost lost the back end into turn 1 there. Almost lost it and speared into the back of Matt Williams, but he's able to hold on. And Ross will try to make the move at the hairpin. And we've had Gary Neville disqualified, so I wonder what has happened there. So Neville has gone around, and he's flipped over the fence, and he's ended up going backwards. And unfortunately, that's because he's gone backwards for too long to try and get back onto the track. That is him out of the race. So big shame for Gary Neville as his teammate continues to battle with Brendan Ross for the lead. In fact, they've lost about half a second and another half a second just in that middle split alone as well to Brenton Foley. So Foley is coming hard and fast. As you see Thomas Paul wide at the penultimate corner. He'd finally got himself up into 4th place, but now he's dropped behind Luke Joyner, Cracker and Netherelmian, who's up 3 spots. No, solid start for Netherelmian. Hasn't quite been in the thick of it as much as Luke Joyner, Cracker or Paul. But he's quietly got himself up a few spots. And looking good to pick up a few more points in for his, championship charge to hopefully hold on to 3rd place. Cracker now all over the back of Luke Joyner. It's awfully reminiscent of an F3 race at Monza with all the slipstreaming going on. If you break that toe, you almost said, as you see Cracker running wide on the curve, and somehow he avoided Thomas Paul. There's no way that Cracker had any control of that, and he somehow fit between Thomas Paul and Netherelmian there. I don't know how, but thankfully avoiding what would have been a massive collision, and Thomas Paul didn't really lose any time out of that at all. And Cracker actually isn't too far away either, as you see Netherelmian now up into 4th place and going along nicely, but he will have to contend with Luke Joyner, who now has the slipstream. Up at the front though, Williams into the lead, and Ross has lost his front splitter. Again, that's more due to the way the damage is on these cars. We've got a rear bumper missing off Matt Williams' car, which is no surprise. They've sort of maintained the gap on this lap. The gap was down to 2.2 seconds. It's now 2.6 seconds between them. This little pack and Brenton Foley. As you see, Foley fastest lap of the race, 56.2. That would have been good enough for pole position, but he stuffed his qualifying lap. We see Ross just showing his nose a little bit. Looks like he wants to make a move, not so much at the hairpin, but into the penultimate corner. And Foley, about a tenth faster in that first sector. So all Foley needs to do is just hope these guys battle just for a little bit longer, just so I can get into slipstream range. And then it's game on for him. Behind them, looks like Netherelmian just getting away from Luke Joyner now, and Joyner once again having to deal with Thomas Paul in the Peugeot 308, which you will see at the bend in real life in a couple of weeks' time. A little bit of a lock up there for Joyner, and Paul losing the back end once again at the penultimate corner. This time able to hold on to it. Doesn't cost him too much time, but it will cost him a chance of making a move at the hairpin, barring a mistake from Joyner. So it looks like Paul's car is just a little bit too loose at the moment, so he may need to play around with the bars throughout the race, and perhaps between races make a change to the tyre pressures. And Turmo now also starting to come under pressure from Cracker, who had a good starting position, but that little mistake he had at the penultimate corner, which could have been catastrophic for both him and Thomas Paul, but thankfully and miraculously there was no contact between the two. And it looks like Paul showing his nose a little bit into the penultimate corner, not quite close enough to join it to make the move stick. Behind them, we've also got Turmo under severe pressure from Cracker. He's got the pace in that C8 Cooper, which is another car which we'll see at the bend. And even though it is mid-race, co-commentator has joined us for this round, so welcome aboard, Benjamin Rhodes.
Hello. I've just missed the start, so I'm having to commentate using live race there.
Yeah,
I lost track of my timing today, so just missed that. But I'll do what I can.
We'll just keep an eye, obviously, on the sectors and the light going on. But at the front, it's now a 3-car battle, so it hasn't been a good lap for the two front runners in Ross and Williams, because Brenton Foley, who was about 2.5 seconds adrift a lap ago, is now right behind Brendan Ross as Foley skates his way through turn 1 over the curb, which did cost him a bit of time, but with a bit of slipstream and the two cars in front of him battling into the hairpin, he should catch that up pretty quickly. As we see Ross now trying to make the move on Matt Williams. Did outbrake himself a little bit, and Williams will have the better exit. But Williams will have to wait until the end of the straight to cash in on Ross. Just outbraking himself slightly there. But this time, Williams thinks better of it. Surprisingly, been a bit more circumspect and a bit smarter with his overtaking choices compared to Brendan Ross when we've seen him in the past few rounds. Well, Ross has been a little bit more aggressive. And half a lap later, there it is. Foley caught right back up to the back of his stablemates. And behind them, Netherelmian out on his own. He's got a bit of a gap to Luke Joyner as we stay with this front crew. It looks like both Ross and Williams just outbroke themselves a little bit of a lockup from the two. But with all that going on, it sort of balked Foley as well. So nothing between these guys once again here on lap 11 with just under 15 minutes remaining. And Williams, not sure if that was an actual attempt for the lead or if that was just it's probably more of a defence, sticking to the middle of the road to try and force Foley to go around the outside. Oh, and Williams lost the back end a little bit, and there's contact. I don't know if it was. We'll just have a look at the replay. I don't think it was so much Williams' fault. I think Foley just lost the back end himself, but we'll have a look. We were on board with him, so he didn't see what happened. But we will see what happens to Foley on the replay. Hopefully not too badly damaged. At least for his sake, but for the championship it wouldn't be too bad. No, Foley just lost it massively on his own and into the wall. So there goes the rear bumper. That is a fairly big hit. And behind them, they're too wide out of the hairpin, so it's a drag between the Holden Astra and the Peugeot 308. And Turmo's not too far away in the Audi RS3 as well. So Paul still can't quite get this move done on Luke Joyner. And Joyner living up to his reputation as being one of the more difficult men to pass at Automobilista Australia. And once again, holding on around the outside at the penultimate corner. So good driving. And now there's a bit of a Joyner train. And Paul trying to go up the inside into turn 1, but Joyner just places his car where it's difficult for Paul to try and make that move stick. And he's going to have to wait now until the hairpin or until the penultimate corner. We've also got Kraken having a look up the inside of Turmo. So he not quite close enough to make the move stick. And Paul now out of the slipstream of the Astra. He has got an overlap and he probably should make the move stick now into the penultimate corner. He's just got to pull it up in the braking zone. He's outbroke himself though. Joyner is gonna take the position back, and in fact he's gonna lose position to Turmo. So Paul, he's got the pace probably over Luke Joyner, but he just can't stay in front of him. And now he's got to get past Turmo, and Turmo sort of disposed of Cracker just a little bit. So Cracker's made a little bit of a mistake somewhere. In front of them, Netherrealm is still out on his own. Foley's about 3.5 seconds from the back of Matt Williams, and Williams about 1.2 now behind Brendan Ross, after obviously Williams had that little issue at turn 1 himself on the same lap that Foley tried to bin his Volvo. We'll stick with this nice little battle pack with Luke Joyner at the head. So he's got a slight gap over Turmo. And Turmo now coming under attack from Thomas Paul. Turmo holding on for now. And Turmo want every point he can get to get in front, to get as many points as he can in front of Steve Bulger in the standings. And a bit of a mistake there from Thomas Paul at turn 1. Dropped him a couple tenths. And he's probably more looking in his mirrors now with Cracker behind him. And Turmo having a look at Joyner. He's going to try and make the move into the hairpin. He's pulled it up. He sort of parked it in the middle of the road as well, which sort of hampered Joyner's attempt to get him on the switchback. So smart drive from Turmo, whether deliberate or not. And Turmo now up into P5, so probably not the quickest, but he's just showing Thomas Paul how to get it done. You pick your spot and you make sure you get it right. But now he's got to deal with Joyner, who's got the slipstream in behind. A little bit of a nudge between the two, but not causing either to lose time. And once again, Thomas Paul, another mistake at that penultimate corner. Now he's got Cracker on his inside for turn 1. Little bit of contact between the two, and that's Cracker in the wall. Hopefully his car's not too badly damaged. But Thomas Paul not quite leaving Cracker enough room into turn 1 there, and that sent Cracker into the fence. And Cracker now is going to lose out to Mike Coulston. Or is he? No, it's going to be a straight drag to the hairpin with Cracker on the inside, Coulston on the outside. And Cracker lifting out of it and letting Coulston through for 8th place. And looking at the lap times, Coulston's a bit quicker than that group in front, so he'll be hoping the battle continues. But it looks like Turmo on this lap is edging away from Luke Joyner. But it'll be when Thomas Paul sort of rejoins the back of Luke Joyner. Oh, maybe that's not going to happen, as Paul on the grass coming up to the penultimate corner on the outside under braking, goes to turn in, around he goes. Well, half around anyway, and that's cost him even more time. So that penultimate corner causing all kinds of havoc for Thomas Paul. He's got lap time in him, but he just can't put a lap together. So now he's only got Mike Coulston a second behind him. And where he's going, he might drop a couple more spots. But at the front though, Matt Williams has dropped a couple seconds. He's now 3.1. Last time we checked out at the front, the gap was about 1.1 seconds. It's now 3.1 seconds. So Ross putting together, well, he's been nice and consistent. In fact, looking at the first sector, 22.9 for Matt Williams on this lap compared to a 21.2. So that'll do it, 1.7 seconds in one sector. So I think Matt Williams has had another mistake coming into turn 1. Did say at the start of the broadcast, turn 1 is going to be the one where we are going to see a number of drivers make these mistakes. And so far, at least for the FCR team, that's certainly been the case. And Foley is 1.9 seconds off the back of Matt Williams. And Rody, while you're here, if you could just at least remember all the races so far. I think Foley's won every single first race of a round. Or could you just check that?
I can go through the live results and check that out for you. Yeah.
Because I do believe that is the case, but I'm not 100% certain. And the way it's going, Brendan Ross might be the first driver to take that away from him, be the first driver to not beat Brenton Foley to win the first race of a round. That said, though, very squirrely coming into turn 1, is able to hold it. He's actually lost a bit of time. So on that last lap, he lost, well, he set a 22.6 compared to a 21.3 to Matt Williams. So not too consistent, but still 7.5 minutes plus an extra lap remaining. 1.7 seconds separates the first two. And then Matt Williams 2.3 over Foley. Foley's got 3.3 seconds over Netherelmian, who has 5.8 over Turmo. Turmo now 1.6 in front of Luke Joyner, and Luke Joyner is once again being joined by Thomas Paul, but he's been pulling Mike Coulston along with him in 8th place, and he's not too far away, and Cracker also not too far away as well. Alright, this time Paul with the slipstream alongside Luke Joyner. Can he pull it up this time, or is he going to lose it once again into the penultimate corner? A little bit more conservative on the brakes, and Joyner going to try and hold on around the outside. He's done it before, has Luke Joyner hold on around the outside, but not able to do it this time. But he is going to try. He's done it through the final 2 turns, but not able to do it into turn 1. And Paul now finally into 6th place, but he hasn't got a good run through turn 1, and Joyner, he got the better exit, once again back up in front of him, so quite frustrating for Paul, but Joyner smartly getting himself back up in front. And we've got a car off. That's Turmo, so Turmo off at the hairpin. He's outbroke himself. We'll have a look on the replay and see what he's done here. So he's either outbroke himself, yeah, he's just outbroke himself there. Massive lock-up, so that will be flat spotted. And that has dropped him down to 9th place. All his hard work getting through this little pack and building a lead over it, and now he's behind it by quite a few seconds as Coulson comes from a long way back over Luke Joyner. Paul will like that very much, because that's going to give Paul a little bit of a gap over Mike Coulson. And Joyner now down into 7th. Very aggressive from Coulson. And Joyner couldn't do anything about it, but he will have to slipstream into the hairpin. And Thomas Paul will be, I think, celebrating a little bit in his helmet, because he was able to pull and stretch away just a little bit from Mike Coulson. It was just Luke Joyner that he's having troubles with. That said, Thomas Paul still has to keep it on the road at this penultimate corner that he's had troubles at all evening long.
I've just gone back and I looked through the results for you. I haven't got all the results in front of me at the moment, but what I have got confirmed is that Foley has not won every single first race of this season. At Mallala, Matt Williams took the win in race 1, and at Queensland Raceway, Brendan Ross took the win in race 1 there. So, but he has still won the most races this season, I do believe.
Thank you for the correction. But yeah, he seems to be quite dominant in these first races. But there you go. I do remember now, obviously, Williams just holding on at Mallala, and then again, Brendan Ross just holding on at Queensland Raceway. So Paul has just edged away from Coulson, who did send that dive onto Joyner, and Coulson defensive into the hairpin. Joyner going the wide line, and I reckon that's going to set him up all right, but I don't think he's going to be quite close enough, even with the slipstream into the penultimate corner. But Coulson came from a long way back, so maybe Joyner might try and do the same thing on the Alfa Romeo driver. No, not quite close enough, but Coulson a little bit wide, though. Outbroke himself, a little bit of a lock-up. And Joyner right there with him now. And in fact, Joyner a little bit better through the final corner. So did look like there's going to be a slight overlap, but I think that's just the camera playing an optical illusion on us. With this battle going on, it's allowing obviously Paul to get away and Cracker to close in, as well as Turmo. So Turmo will be desperate for this battle to continue for the final 3.5 minutes. The gap at the front now down to about I was going to say 1.5 seconds, but I think it's just come out a little bit more. Let's just skip ahead. Oh, Williams, a big mistake at the penultimate corner. But thankfully for him, the gap was 1.5 seconds between himself and Ross, so that'll go out a little bit now. But he did have 3 seconds over Brenton Foley, who after that big accident and big hit here at turn 1, hasn't quite been the same. That said, he just set a 56.7. Netherelmian, nice and consistent 56.9 for him. He's 4 seconds adrift of Brenton Foley and 8.5 seconds clear of Thomas Paul in 5th place. And Coulson now has just got a little bit of a gap over Luke Joyner, but Joyner seems to be quite handy through turn 1. He's made up just a little bit of time, and the slipstream that he gets coming down now into the hairpin should bring him closer for a nice run and possible move into the penultimate corner, and he will need that slipstream because Cracker is right in his wheel tracks. So we're right on board the rear wing of Cracker. He's in that slipstream. Now will he pull out and make the move? You see a number of drivers locking up. He will have a look. He'll show his nose. Almost lost the rear end under braking. Coulson once again a little bit wide, a little bit of a wiggle for Joyner, and a nice solid run for Cracker, but he's got nowhere to go, so he's all over that bumper of the Holden Astra. Has to get out of it at turn 1 unless he wants to run into the back of Joyner, but he doesn't want to do that. Cracker, one of the cleaner drivers at Automobilista Australia, but he's had a good run to the first couple corners, and he's going to force Joyner to go defensive now into the hairpin. But he'll now be trying to set up a run. So he's never really going to get around the outside at the hairpin, but he's got a much better exit out of the hairpin. And he'll definitely get it. Well, he has got Nova up now already halfway down the straight towards the penultimate corner. And he's given himself every opportunity to make a move. Both break at about the same point. No. Cigarette paper between them. Joyner going to try and hold on around the outside, but Cracker too good. Cracker up into P7. Nicely thought out move. Nice and clean between the two of them. Cracker up to 7th. Joyner down to 8th, and Tumo not too far away. They've lost out just a little bit to Mike Coulston as they've battled. And they've also lost out a bit to Tumo in behind as well. I said Joyner making a late braking move at the hairpin. Cracker's going to get him underneath. No, maybe not, as they had nowhere to go but into the back of Joyner's car on the exit, and that's blocked and held up Cracker quite a bit. And Turmo now, I'd imagine, would be in the slipstream of the Seat Cupra in front. Time about to expire. And time has now expired, so the next lap will be the final one. There will be 28 laps. Oh, and a big mistake from Cracker. Lost the rear end under braking coming over that little bump and rise coming into turn 1, and all his hard work undone in a split second. So he's now down to 9th. Turmo up to 8th, and Joyner back up into P7. At the front though, Brendan Ross 1.6. Big lock up into the penultimate corner. He's coming up to lap Glenn Miles as he will now begin the final lap. 1.6 in front of Matt Williams. 56.8 compared to pretty much the exact same lap time between the two of them. And yeah, 1.6 between the front two. 3.7 between Williams and Foley. 4.8 between Foley and Netherelmian. He's been a bit anonymous in this one, but he hasn't quite had the pace of the front three, but he's driven his own race. He's been nice and consistent and hasn't made the errors, and he's stayed out of trouble, unlike Thomas Paul behind him. He's done it the hard way, both in qualifying where he had quite decent pace, but had to start at the back and then force his way past Luke Joyner, Mike Coulston and Turmo multiple times to get himself up into P5. They've got Coulston, who hasn't had the greatest run. He was involved in a bit of contact at turn 1, but at the front though, Brendan Ross coming around now. The final corner will take race 1 here at Brian Walsh Raceway. or Plains, I should say. Matt Williams second. Brenton Foley in third place. And Netherrealm Mint will cross the line. Bit of a quiet P4, but he'll certainly take those points. Thomas Paul, a very hard-earned fifth place for him. Mike Coulston will take P6 in the end. A joiner P7. And Termo not too far adrift there in 8th place. Cracker, he'll be a bit annoyed with that mistake late on. He'll finish in 9th place after taking P7 just a couple of laps from the finish. And then Glenn Miles, the last of the finishers, down 3 spots from where he started because he put in a solid qualifying lap in, didn't make a mistake, but still, top 10 out of 11 for him. And the final finisher in 10th place, with Gary Neville being disqualified after having an accident at the penultimate corner, going over the fence and then going backwards. So he was unfortunately a bit hard done by there, but that's just sim racing for you. All right, well, that's race 1 done and dusted, with Brendan Ross doing all he needed to do to take victory, and Brenton Foley wasn't able to work his way through the field, or at least to the front, as quickly as what we're accustomed to, but still solid third place for him, with Matt Williams again giving great chase to Brendan Ross, but just not quite fast enough to hold onto the lead when he did have it. Alright guys, we'll take a short break as we set the grid for the reverse grid and second race, or final race of the evening, but we shall be back. Alrighty, and welcome back to round 6 of the TCR Oz series. And we've got about 5 minutes left of the warm-up session. And Rosie, you are in the game this time. How's the warm-up been going so far?
Everyone's been pretty well behaved, although, as I said that as we came back into live pictures as such, I was on board with Cracker, who spun, I think it was the last corner, and took both front and rear bumper off, as you do in these things. But otherwise, yeah, from what I've seen, everyone's been keeping the panels on their car, just getting in some clean practice laps before the second race.
You have seen Foley crack under the 56. Also seen Cracker also in the 56s with the 56.8. Gary Neville as well, half a tenth off Cracker. And then another Elmi, and again, very, very close. Obviously, Symmons Plains generally brings very close racing with the smallest of margins separating the drivers. And we did see that in the first race. Obviously, there was a little bit of a gap between the front three after a while. But once the driver got a slipstream, no one could get away, Rhodesy.
No, it's. I think what helps is the shortness of the circuit is that if you get away, you don't really have a chance to build on a big speed advantage as such. All you need is to be, if the person behind you, to be more confident in the corners, and they've got the chance to get that spot back up on you. And yeah, if you've got a good run on someone, you don't have a chance to get out of their slipstream range of the guy behind you. So it does make it hard to break away from the rest of the pack here.
Yeah, when we did see, obviously, Nether Elmi sort of broke away from that 4-car battle pack early on with his consistent driving and was able to stick out of trouble. So that was good for him. And in that midfield battle, I think it's going to be quite crucial for those guys. If you are just a little bit faster, just to, do all you can to try and get away and minimise those little mistakes when a driver is within slipstream of you, just to try and get away. Because if you can't lose that toe, you're not really going to lose anybody around here.
No, it's weird that it's not what you kind of think of as a typical slipstream. I mean, every circuit can be a pack racing circuit, but it's not what you think of as a slipstream train creating circuit. But it just sort of ends up like that. Not a lot of chances for. The other thing is, it's not a narrow track as such. There's not a lot of chances to really run too wide safely. So you kind of have to sit in the wheel tracks with the guy in front of you and wait for them to make the mistake rather than force yourself past them. So it's a different style of racing to some of the other circuits we've seen on the calendar.
And then there's also a couple corners. Obviously, see the one with Gary Neville on screen at the moment. That penultimate corner's one, as well as the hairpin, where you can set different lines, and we've seen drivers break at different points and actually make up quite a bit of time. And the hairpin in particular is one where you can take a wider line and turn in a bit later, and we have seen drivers get really good runs out of that later turn in or carrying a little bit more speed through the mid corner, and then getting that nice exit, because it is bermed a little bit, sort of like a motocross style hairpin, but with a bit of tarmac down.
It is, yeah. There is some great I'd actually like to. It would be nice if you go and see the hairpin. Let's see if not driving in real life to see what the camber does. But it's similar in a way, I suppose, to the similar in a way to the carousel. I think it is at the Nürburgring, although slightly different corner profile and all that. But yeah, the good thing about camber, and you get it, I suppose, Philip on turn one's another good example of what camber can do for you. It means you don't have to take as much speed off as you'd like because the car naturally wants to turn into the corner as well. Granted, the cambering is not steep enough that the car will turn that corner for you. You have to be nearly on a vertical wall. But it does help the car out, that cambering.
Yeah, and it does help for overtaking. Also helps with defending. There was some smart driving. I think this was with Turmo. Sort of later on in that race when he made his way past Luke Joyner, which we haven't seen a number of drivers do. We haven't seen too many drivers do it, but he sort of once he did make the move on Luke Joyner, he sort of parked in the middle of the road, and we have seen drivers try and get others on the switchback, and he sort of just parked it in a way where Joyner couldn't get him on the switchback and couldn't get the power down, and obviously make the move into the penultimate corner. I'm surprised you haven't seen more of that, but I reckon Luke Joyner might just store that away and use that in the second one.
I absolutely agree with that. Yeah, no, some good battling there. Not only for the front runners, but Tomo and Tomo's been a front runner, and we've seen him up the front or relatively near the front of other series. Obviously, top five or nearabouts in Super Two, leading in the Silver Cup in GT3. And good to see that these cars have turned out to his liking as well. Not as quick as he's been in Super 2, but still definitely competitive in these machines.
Yeah, just lacking sometimes just a little bit of consistency, and he does get involved. He has been involved in a couple sort of incidents as well, which sort of have dampened his chances to move up in the standings and have some better results. But he does have that little bit of racecraft in him. Hopefully, he picks up a little bit more of that, and we see some better results for him.
Obviously, sorry, something else grabbed my attention for a second and completely lost where my words were going.
Yeah, all good. We are just waiting on Dezuin, who must be Philip, who just joined the server. Hopefully he gets back in as soon as possible, because once he's up and running, we're going.
Yeah, one of the things about this series is that we have maintained interest from people. And I suppose it's a good sign when you've got more people signing up across the length of the season. You do have people sort of stepping out. Like I suppose myself being one example. I, in hindsight, probably overcommitted to run. I think 4 or 5 series as I was running it when it got quite hectic at a point in time. The biggest issue for these cars with me, it's just my driving style. The front wheel drive cars don't suit me as well as rear wheel drive do. I think it's generally just understeer doesn't work for me as well as oversteer does. And these things will oversteer if you throw it into a corner on cold tires, but the natural order is to understeer once all the tires are heated up. So, but it's good that we're getting interest from people like Dezuin. I think that's roughly right. Or Phil, hopefully that is the same person, or we've got two people trying to get in. But yeah, it's good that we've got people. We've got interest, and we're actually managing to build the grid as the season goes, rather than the inverse of, say, some of the real world series we've seen, where the grid declines as the season rolls through.
Well, once the series was announced, obviously we have seen numbers sort of decline a little bit, but they have sort of stayed around that 16 car mark. Unfortunately, this round obviously a little bit lower, but for the majority of the season, 15, 16 cars has been quite good. And yeah, obviously seeing a little bit of interest later on in the season is quite good. But I think TCR as a whole is in a good place, both in real life and I think in this series as well. Obviously, round one here, we saw a massive turnout, over 20 cars, and some good racing. Unfortunately, a number of drivers obviously haven't raced since then. Thomas Paul being one of the drivers who raced in round one and we hadn't seen since, but thankfully he's come back and hopefully he races obviously a few more towards as the season obviously winds down a bit, and hopefully see a couple others come back as well. But I think the series is in a good place in real life. I'm not quite a fan of the next year's calendar. I was hoping there'd be a bit more variety in circuits, but this series on the Monday nights there will be a little bit more variety and a few more Australian tracks on there. We'll be chucking Barbagallo on there, and possibly one or two others changing as well, and possibly Gold Coast on there as well.
Yeah, I think I remember there's been just some discussions on this, and the general theme in Hope and Barbagallo was to throw in a couple of street circuits, which from memory I don't think we actually have any on the calendar this season.
No.
So there will be an extra challenge. We see what they do in things like supercars. V8 Ute's been a good example of what happens when you stick some. I suppose are the closest thing, and especially in terms of the amount of bumpers we're going to find falling off cars. But yeah, you're going to find it's definitely going to require a mature driving style to get to the end without missing a wheel or an entire corner of your car. And look, we may see, the very best that we've seen in TCR racing. We may see, what I'm trying to pick of a recent race. The only thing that comes to mind is Gold Coast a couple of years ago with the Utes, where they all had a Sunday morning drivers briefing, because they may have, docked about 6 cars off the order in one race because they're all a bit too excited. So hopefully it's the former rather than the latter.
Well, I think the Utes are a different kettle of breed. Those guys. I did have a mate that drove a couple of races in them, and he can confirm it. And from those that have seen it, the racing in that was quite bonkers. So
Mm.
every time I saw it, there was cars being speared off left and right and punted. So that was just that series. But I think TCR at this early stage, I think street circuit's probably not the greatest idea, as a lot of teams don't have a lot of money in Australia to sort of fund, obviously, a complete rebuild of a car. But we do have plenty of other smaller circuits. Obviously, Winton, you got Sandowns, and a lot of other circuits. The Bend, you got circuits like Malala would also in real life would probably be a good choice, and you got Barbagallo as well, which Barbagallo should be on the calendar, but maybe all the teams are out east and they don't want to go all the way out west. It would be a bit costly. And then I think obviously the circuit we're running at tonight here at Symmons Plains would actually be a nice circuit for TCR as well. Would produce some really, really close racing.
Absolutely. I think this circuit does. I think the supercars are a bit too quick to make sort of proper use of this circuit. It's a 50-second lap, I think, for them, and I find that to be too short. These things about sort of the quickest I would if I was running things as such. Well, the quickest things I'll be putting around here, these are the good sort of size cars for a circuit. Like a good example, I suppose, of sort of sizing a car for a circuit would be looking at the current Zandvoort and then putting F1 cars around it. It's too small a track for the speed they're capable of. They extend Zandvoort, which I think they'll possibly. I've seen some bits here and there. If they extend it, it might be a little better. But Zandvoort's current character does not suit F1 at all. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes down.
Well, even then, if they do extend it, it's like, what can they do to actually make it a decent circuit for F1? And I don't think there really is anything they can do to make it a decent circuit for F1. That middle sector, because I think they're pretty much extending that first sector a little bit and maybe a part of that middle sector. I don't think there really is all that much that they can do to it to make it F1 ready, where there's going to be decent racing around there. Like I see that as a circuit that's just going to be, it's going to be worse than Monaco, I feel. I don't think cars are going to be able to follow each other in the middle sector, and they're certainly not really going to be able to pass each other as well. But
From what I have seen, they are going to expand the area beyond, what is it, turn 1, 2. They're going to widen to turn 3, 4 up onto the first back straight as such. And then what they're going to do, and because F1 loves butchering circuits just for itself, they're going to basically turn the question mark into a bit of a chicane. And the question mark, I've raced there in a couple of series. It isn't a fun section, that question mark, but it's character, that section, and I don't like that F1's coming in and ruining it. But what helps is that I don't have the money to race their IRL, and they're not going to change the version in Automotive Lister for a little while. So I think I'm good in terms of what actually affects me. But yeah, it's still not going to be an F1 circuit when they're finished with it.
Yeah, a bit of a shame that they're changing. It is a pretty iconic circuit. Obviously, it's not an F1 style circuit, but you'd stick a GT car or a TCR car, Porsche Cup car, you chuck them around there, and it's a tricky track for them to drive, and it's about the right speed for them as well.
Yeah.
And I guess it's the same with a lot of these the shorter Australian circuits. I reckon they're perfect for these TCR cars, and perhaps the supercars have outgrown them just a little bit, being a little bit too powerful.
I think ultimately all the F1 and stuff is F1 realizing, oh, hey, there's some money in Verstappen land. Let's go get it, regardless of the fact that the racing's gonna be terrible. But hey, money. We like money.
Yeah, I think they probably would have been better off going to another circuit in the Benelux region, but F1 wants to go back to Zandvoort, where there's going to be an absolute snooze fest of the race. Anyway, we've ticked over to the race session. The driver was going to show up, hasn't jumped in time. We've given him additional time, and he's not made it. We've ticked over to the race session, so 25 minutes, and the reverse grid race will be headed by Glenn Miles, who is currently on your screen. And alongside him, Cracker. So he'll be hoping for a nice start. And behind him, Termo, again, he'll be looking for a nice clean start as well. And Rhodey, why don't you take us through the rest of the grid?
Alrighty. Alongside Termo is going to be Luke Joyner for the Matt Harvey Repair and Tune Racing, and he's holding up. He's That is a Holden Astra, yes.
Yes.
Fifth is Mike Coulston. I believe he is the only Flat Spot Racing driver here tonight, running in the sole Alpha in the field as well. Sixth is going to be Thomas Paul in the Peugeot guest team car. Obviously, he started early in the season. He's got the pace as we saw in race one, but consistency is quite escaping at the moment. Seventh is Netherwellian Outward Racing Team in his Ford Focus. Eighth is Brenton Foley, wins more or less everything you put him in for FCR Motorsport Team Scrouse. Ninth is Matt Williams for FCR Motorsport. 10th is Brendan Ross for FCR Motorsport Team Scrouse. 11th is Gary Neville for FCR Motorsport. All those four guys currently lined up in those Volvos. And last is Steve Burko in his Honda Civics for Dragon Racing Team.
Yeah, so Burko jumping in for race 2. So good to see another driver jumping on this evening. Unfortunately, weren't able to get the other driver into the server. Drivers now forming up onto the grid. A lot of drivers, as we see, a long way back from their grid boxes. Turmo having to move forward. Cracker's still nowhere near his, and Glenn Miles again is kilometres away from his. So we might be.
I think he's a full car length from the back from his white line.
It is a full car length, so we might be waiting a little while. No, the game's warped him forward. Cracker's still a fair way back and rolling back, but anyway, 2 lights, 3 lights, 4 lights. Away we go. Looks like Turmo's got a decent jump, and Thomas Paul's got the best jump out of that midfield bunch, and into turn 1 they come. Cracker into the lead. Turmo looking to make a move, and he is up into P2. And in fact, Turmo sort of looking for the lead as well. You got Joyner up the inside, looking to make a move into the hairpin of Glenn Miles in 3rd place, as the TCR field rumbles towards the hairpin.
Oh, Mike Coulson down the inside there, or the 3 wide draw trying to get past Glenn. Oh, there's actually contact further back. Nether and I believe it was Foley connected in the background as well. Coulson just door banged Miles on the way out of the hairpin as well, which puts Coulson up to 4th, Miles back to 5th already, only halfway through this lead lap.
Yeah, we've got Paul and Matt Williams side by side. They've got Netherwellian also having a look in front of Glenn Miles. And Williams trying to go around the outside of Netherwellian at the penultimate corner. Block up from Coulston in front of them. Netherwellian holds on up the inside. And Williams going to try and go along around the outside. And he's got Paul alongside him as well. Hopefully he sees him coming. The FCR car. Oh, a bit of a lock-up from Foley there as well. Burko almost running into the back of the other FCR car at the back, as we see Paul with a bit of contact losing his front bumper. Both Williams and Paul trying to get past, and Foley trying to get past Glenn Miles. So they're 4 wide going into the hairpin. And it looks like...
just saw that was Foley just down the inside of, I believe it was Matt Williams, and I think it was Rossi Paul down the inside of Thomas Paul as well.
Yeah. Well, Rossi couldn't quite get the move done because he's still behind Thomas Paul. As we see now, the Ford Focus of Glenn Miles getting shifted back, and Foley and Williams side by side. Cigarette paper between them into the penultimate corner. Foley, a big slide. Ooh. And Williams just having to get out of it just a little bit to avoid contact, but he has got a little bit of an overlap, and he's up the inside for turn 1, but he has to hold on under braking. And he almost lost the rear end and spin into the back of his teammate, but he holds on for now. But he's actually going to have to deal with Thomas Paul, who's had a decent run out of turn 1 now.
He is. He got that far out of shape in turn 1 that he lost any chance keeping with Foley. And yes, Thomas Paul was rubbing his backside. Now, he's already lost his front bumper, so he's not afraid to get a bit of and budge going. He's trying. I think he's going to go for a run at the inside here.
He almost ran into the back of Foley, but he's ran wide on the exit, and it's going to be a drag between himself and Matt Williams. And Williams does have the overlap, and he has got his nose just in front. That's because he's still got his front splitter on. But it is going to be a drag. And Paul's actually got a little bit of slipstream from Foley in front of him, so that's why he's edged up in front of Williams for now. But Williams still trying to make the move stick. He has got the inside. Paul trying to hold on around the outside. We've seen this all night long. It is possible to hold on around the outside, and this time Thomas Paul does it. Williams not too happy, as Paul did sort of cut him off just a little bit. And Williams almost losing the back and running into the back of Paul as they go into turn 1.
Yeah, he's not having a fun run of turn 1 in this second race, Matt Williams. But yeah, Thomas Paul, as I said, he's got the pace. He's trying to make his way up through the grid. But he was, after I watched the dive last lap, I was amazed he didn't have flat spots after that, because that was a big lock. That was full full fill your pants emergency braking he pulled there to try and not punt Foley at the same time. He was very lucky to get away with that.
He was lucky. It wouldn't surprise me if he's got a flat spot, but it doesn't seem too major at the moment. But for Foley, Paul and Williams, they should be a bit thankful that the cars in front haven't gotten too far away as they've battled. Cracker is only 3.5 seconds up the road, but he's got a little bit of a gap over Termo in second, and then they've got Joyner and Coulston in front as well. Now the railway and around goes Foley. He's lost it at turn 1 again under braking. So all that hard work to get himself up into P6 undone in an instant. And he's lost his bonnet as well. He's hit that front on this time. In race 1 he hit that sort of side and rear on, and he might have some suspension damage from that one.
Yeah, I'd say so. We've just seen more contact again. Thomas Paul and Matt Williams. I believe Paul was looking up the inside into the hairpin, and Williams very rightfully moved across the inside on him. I don't believe there was a bit of any circumspect racing there. It was just a bit of bad timing as such. But yeah, the good thing is they're both already missing their bumpers, so no extra bumpers went flying in that. But very hard racing here in the mid-pack.
Yeah, Paul just carrying a bit more speed through the middle of the hairpin, the mid-corner, and just ran into the back of Matt Williams. I don't think Williams would be too happy with that, but Paul's lost the rear end. He's done what Foley did, but he's gone in the opposite direction, then gone straight back into the path of Brendan Ross. Thankfully, no contact. But to the back of the field, Thomas Paul goes, and he's going to have to make his way forward once again. So another driver and a front runner, or one of the faster guys in the field, just like Brendan Foley, having a lot of trouble under braking for turn 1.
I will say that was a pretty excellent flick turn. I think he was helped a bit by the fact that Rossi got out of the gas to give him room to not have a bigger accident. But that was actually a very well executed flick turn, although that wasn't what he was planning when he went to turn 1.
With that happening, I reckon that's opened the race right up. Obviously, you've still got just under 20 minutes remaining, but that might open the door for a guy like Netherrealm, who's battling, and Cracker as well, who's got a little bit of a gap out in front. But Netherrealm, the fastest of this front group, is Coulston and Joyner all over the place at the penultimate corner. Netherrealm trying to make his way through this little pack as well.
I know we talk about people banging doors, but I'm surprised both of them still have doors. They were nearly in each other's doors coming into the last corner.
And Joyner's not had a good exit there out of turn 2, and Netherrealm having a look. So with Foley further down the field, Paul further down the field, Matt Williams obviously another shout for a race win as well. He's got a bit of pace. He's only 3.5 seconds adrift.
Yeah, Matt, speaking of Matt, he just thought about trying to dive down the inside of Netherrealm and was just a bit too far back though. Made contact with him, but it wasn't enough, and I don't think the speed differential was that great that he caused too much. It didn't have too much of an effect on him, but I thought that he was going to get spun for a second there.
He's in a good position now, is Matt Williams, having a look up the inside, bit of a lock-up, but gets the job done. Netherrealm gives him the space, and that's Mike Coulson wide as well at the penultimate corner, so that's another spot they don't have to pass, and Rossi, a bit unhappy, he's got the lights on, but as Mike Coulson rejoined the track, we'll have a look at that on the replay and see if that was an unsafe rejoin or if that was just circumstance. He did try to make the move on Luke Joyner, and he rejoined the track. I don't think it was quite dangerously, but it certainly balked Brendan Ross, that's for sure. As Williams trying to make the move. So Netherrealm has got past Matt Williams. Matt Williams now the better exit out of the hairpin.
I'd say that. I think
much.
He's actually pulling along slightly better than Netherrealm, partially because I think they're both fighting over the toe of the Astra in front.
Yeah, and there it is. Netherrealm just pulling in front. But Williams is close enough for a dive if he wants to do it, and he is going to try it. He does pull it up, and 2 laps in a row up the inside at the penultimate corner, and up into now 4th place.
This isn't the spot I want to be for Nether. We've seen so far, I mean, he could get us wrong this lap and could do a pretty good job through turn 1. Actually, he has. I was going to say, if Williams was going to have a mistake again, Netherrealm was in a bad spot there. He could have caught the back end of a Volvo.
Yeah, and I think the key to this race for these guys is going to be Luke Joyner. If you can clear him, it'll give, obviously, these faster guys a decent opportunity to close in on Cracker in front. As Williams now going to try and get Joyner on the switchback, but we have seen Joyner is one of the more difficult drivers to pass, and if he obviously is able to delay these faster guys to get by him for a few minutes, it could give Termo or Cracker a really good opportunity to take their first wins in the TCR season.
Exactly. Joyner's driving, although they both did go very sideways there. I think he is very confident on knowing where he can and cannot get past. He gave Matt plenty of room at the hairpin because he was confident he could get a better drive out of the corner. He wouldn't have to try and defend there, and he could maximise his drive to defend his spot down the next straight. So Joyner's very astute as to knowing what his pace is like around those around him, so that he can maximise his attacking driving versus his defensive driving.
And he hasn't given Williams a good run into the hairpin as well, so he's had a good exit out of turn 1 and 2. And again, he's had a nice solid exit out of the hairpin, so he's not really given Matt Williams any free kicks, as you see Neville wide off at the hairpin and clattering the wall there. So that'll cost him a bit of time to Coulson in front and to Paul behind. But Williams is close enough for a move into the penultimate corner. He's going to try it. But he isn't quite close enough. Joyner does give him just a little bit of room, but Joyner over the curb on the exit, and that's allowed Williams to get by. So just running a little bit too wide there. And Williams now in a decent position to take a win here in race 2.
I was just watching now that I just saw a sliding Volvo in the background. That was Rossi getting way out of shape into turn 1. Proper drift entry there. Not the quickest line there, but not in the wall either.
Just have a look at that on the replay. Yeah, bit of a slide. He did that in race 1 and a bit of a drift there through turn 1. So he's a bit thankful again that it's a front wheel drive car instead of a rear wheel drive car, because if it was rear wheel drive he was off in the boonies. But Williams, he hasn't quite shaken Luke Joyner, and he's going to have to. He has to do it in the next lap or two, because if Joyner sticks around he might just send it, which he is here very late on the brakes. He's not going to pull it up though, and that'll probably cost him a couple spots, so a bit too advantageous, and he sort of blocks Brendan Ross once again, who's had a car that's run wide at the penultimate corner. Just send it in front of him. But Joyner going to try and go around the outside at turn 1, but Ross is like, no, you're going to have to do it at the hairpin if you want to get by me.
Although he did go trying to go with undercut there, not long enough straight for that to happen. He might catch the speed within the straight. The slipstream's going to kick in for him. What that will have done, though, is drop some time off Matt Williams. Well, it doesn't seem to be enough Nether to then try and catch him. But Nether, I think, nearly went for a dive or tried some late braking with the hairpin there, but ended up quite wide.
Yeah, he's lost a little bit of time to Matt Williams in front of him, and he has got a little bit of a gap over Brendan Ross, but I think Ross will probably just edge closer, especially as he probably just is on the edge of the range where you get a slipstream. So we might see him close to within passing, or at least to within a distance where you can think to make a move in the next lap or two.
Speaking of the next lap or two, Glenn Miles is not far from going a lap down. He was only 30-odd seconds behind the leader. Only a lap or two ago, but he must have had a mistake somewhere, because he's now just in front of Cracker, and probably going to catch him within the next half to 3/4 of a lap.
Yeah, and there's a lot of cars involved in that, so Miles is going to have to be on the ball, because there's a number of cars all battling for a realistic shot at a win, it has to be said. As we see, that's Joyner off at the hairpin, so he's either outbroke himself or got a send from Foley in behind. But we'll just have a look here, and it's just Joyner outbraking himself, and yep, off he goes. Hits the wall. That shouldn't be too much damage, but that's a few spots down, and a decent result for him. Looking unlikely. At the front, though, Matt Williams has closed the gap down, so the gap is now within 2 seconds. It's almost within a second. As he crosses the line, it is 1 second now. So in the last lap and a half, 2 laps, he's got it down from 3 seconds to 1. And Glenn Miles now getting out of the way. I don't think Glenn Miles balked Cracker in any way, but Cracker didn't have a good lap last time out.
No, it's the problem where they caught Glenn right into turn 1, turn 2, and didn't give him a lot of options to get out of the way. He did the best job he could with that. Tomo trying to go around the outside now, and Nether dive on the inside of Glenn, actually.
And he had to get that move stick, because he has got Brendan Ross right behind him. And with Termo trying that manoeuvre that he did, it sort of compromised him a bit, because now he's got Matt Williams having a look up the inside. He's not quite close enough. Has to get a second helping of slipstream before sending it up the inside, and Williams now up into second place. So Termo and Cracker weren't able to capitalise on, obviously, Luke Joyner just being a little bit of a cork in the bottle a few laps ago. and they couldn't build any kind of sizable gap, and now they're paying for it as Matt Williams now starts to scythe his way through them, and Netherelmian, Brendan Ross and Brenton Foley not too far away either.
Oh, there we go. I just checked the timing screen and noticed that we'd lost Thomas Paul, and I was wondering what happened. It took me a while through the replays to go back, but he went for a pass on Brenton Foley into the second last corner that it was. Ended up quite wide in on the grass into a tie wall and killed the front of the car. So unfortunately, Thomas Paul already out of this race.
Yeah, a bit of a shame. He showed pace in qualifying, but or in practice, I should say. But since it's ticked over to qualifying, it's just not been his night, with a mistake on his qualifying lap, and then race 1 not exactly going to plan, and race 2 again, obviously, with a DNF. But hopefully we do see him in the few remaining rounds here at TCR Oz. At the front, though, Williams now right behind Cracker, who's got Turmo right behind him, and he's got Netherelmian right behind him. As we see, Matt Williams just showing his nose, just forcing Cracker to go a little bit defensive into the hairpin. Williams with that later turn in, and nice exit, very nice exit. And we should see him make a move, I'd imagine, coming into the penultimate corner, because he's right there with him, with the Seat Cupra.
That was a good exit, but I think it was almost too good in the fact he couldn't actually maximise it because he was buried underneath the Seat's rear wing. But he's just held him off so far, Cracker.
Yeah, so Cracker's done a very good job under braking, and he remains in the lead for now. And we've had Brendan Ross get past Netherelmian into the penultimate corner, so we'll have a look at that on the replay. Netherelmian not too far away from Turmo, and in fact Ross sort of lost it under braking and had to send it up the inside to avoid major contact with Netherelmian, and that's how he got that job done. And now they're going to go 3 wide. Foley, Ross and Netherelmian. Netherelmian sending it up the inside. We've seen a number of drivers outbrake themselves, and Netherelmian's done it again. He's probably going to lose out 2 positions here, because Ross will probably take that position back. Nether will probably be hoping that Turmo moves over and gives him a bit of slipstream. But Ross will probably get by, and I reckon we'll see probably Foley try and get by and make it 3 wide.
I feel like Ross might not, but Foley had the run there. He had to back off way early to avoid having a massive accident. Rossi did get the job done with a dive there, but he has left himself open on the inside.
Oh, he's got him on the switchback there, so Ross just outbraked himself a little bit. Nether had to deal with Foley behind him and just said, no, you're not going up the inside, I'm going to chop your nose. And with that, Netherelmian back up into 4th place, so he's not going to give it up easy. At the front, Cracker's still holding on, with Matt Williams right behind him. So a couple fantastic battles with just under 8.5 minutes remaining.
Yeah, just looking at Foley and Ross down the way into the hairpin, I'd not seen a closer running pair of Volvos. The fact they were missing both the bumpers probably helped them get as close as they did. And they've just swapped positions now, so Foley up to 5th, Rossi back to 6th, and Netherelmian still holding on to 4th.
Yeah, Nether will be hoping that Foley and Ross continue to duke it out, just to buy him a little bit of time. So you look back from the rear left quarter panel of Foley's Volvo, with Brendan Ross, as you can see, right behind him. And Foley right in the wheel tracks of Netherelmian. So these guys, just over 7.5 minutes remaining, are still within striking distance of the lead. But if Foley or Ross want to win this race, they've got to make a move quickly. At the front, though, Cracker is doing a fine job holding off Matt Williams. Williams doesn't quite...
I think this is the thing, actually, just looking at Cracker. He might not have the pace of Williams, but he's not too far off the pace of Williams either. Him holding back Williams is not backing up the field. So if these guys keep battling as they are at the moment, barring any mistakes from the top 2 drivers, I think we could almost say we want to top 2 locked in at the moment. Cracker's got the speed to stay with Williams and or Turmo, even if it's passed by the both of them. So he might still get a podium here.
And we've got Foley making the move up the inside of Nether, and Ross is going to follow suit. So 2 spots in 1 corner. Both the FCR cars very, very close together. And up they both go ahead of Netherelmian. So from 4th to 6th, and Ross almost losing the rear end into turn 1 once again. He's been very close a couple times under braking into turn 1, but he hasn't lost it like his teammate and championship leader in front. At the front though, Williams has hit the lead. He's defending into the hairpin up the inside, and Cracker will try and get that switchback at the hairpin and get the good run into penultimate corner and regain the lead.
He hasn't got the switchback, but he is going to get the slipstream now. So it's going to be. He hasn't been one for any really brackish defensive moves. He hasn't really needed to. So I'm interested to see whether he wants to repay the dive into penultimate
He's
corner.
close, but he backs out of it. As we look back from the lead Volvo, Williams a little bit wide. That's allowed Cracker to stay with him. Williams has to put together a nice couple of clean laps to not allow Cracker to get back into the lead. And Cracker, well, he really has to, I think, hit the lead pretty quickly within the next lap or two. Otherwise, he will see Williams probably just eke away and probably take this race.
I mean, that's the thing.
Oh,
Williams.
Behind them, Foley has jumped up in front of Turmo already, and Ross looking to make a move as well. And there's contact, and I heard contact, and that is Cracker in the gravel trap at the hairpin. I don't know if he's out, but we will cut to a replay. So I wonder if he's tried to make a move, and he's just, he has outbroke himself, lost the rear under braking into the barrier, and unfortunately for Cracker, that is him all the way to the back of the field. He's going to try and keep it going as we see Glenn Miles hit the barrier on the exit of the hairpin as well, and there's a bit of contact between Miles and Burko there.
Yeah, Burko now missing a mirror. I think
Turmo White
trying to get out of the way there, and that was what that was. But
Turmo White at the penultimate corner, and that's allowed Netherelmian past as well. See, once again, Ross almost losing it at turn 1 again, but Williams in the lead. He's got 2 seconds over Brenton Foley in second place, and Brenton Foley's got 0.6 of a second over Ross, and Netherelmian now up into P4 with Turmo right behind him.
I think what only happened with Cracker is that I should have known better. It's been that long since I've commentated. I've got the commentator's curse was still a thing, and I said, oh no, he's going to still hold a podium next lap in the gravel at turn 2, so I need to learn to keep my mouth shut.
You just got to learn to accept that people are going to stuff up when you bring their name up. So I wouldn't worry about it, because Matt Williams has got this race in the bag, sewn up with 4 minutes remaining, and Brenton Foley will win this. Well, he'll finish an easy second place, no doubt about it.
Yeah, they're definitely got the pace to do it. Matt, that's the thing, is Matt wasn't feeling any pressure, I don't think, from Cracker. Not really. Before that happened.
In fact, on that last lap, he said he set his personal best of 56.4 for Williams, so he still has tyres in that thing, and he's still got pace, and he maintained the gap, importantly, between himself and Foley at 2 seconds.
Yeah, so it's really, at this point, it's Matt's race to lose. It's not going to be something anyone else does around him. It's going to be something he does. It's going to be the reason he doesn't win this race.
Yeah. Still 3.5 minutes around here. We did see, I think it's 28 laps in the first race, so there's still going to be a number of laps to go. But should he not make any mistakes, he should take the win from here. Gap was 1.7 seconds, so he did lose 0.3 in the first split, but he's maintained that in the middle sector this time around. I think the big battle now is actually going to be between Ross and Netherelmian for the final podium place. Ross probably does have that little bit of extra pace, but we have seen him make a number of little mistakes here into turn 1. Which...
No, yeah, I was about to bring up the close battle on track, but it's just dissolved itself. Joyner was trying to get past Gary Neville. Similar spot, actually, that Thomas Paul went in the fence. Luckily, Luke can continue. So there was damage to that car, but not as severe, and he's currently being rounded up by the resurging Cracker.
Yeah, we're having a look on the replay at the moment. So he's tried to go around the outside at the penultimate corner. He's locked a brake, ended up on the grass and in the barrier, and that's actually where Gary Neville ended up going over that hedge there and ended up out of bounds and going the wrong way and getting himself disqualified. So he should count himself lucky that he's actually still in the race, both damage-wise and DQ-wise. But, yeah, big loss there for Luke Joyner.
Just thinking about it, have we know that the FCR teams, both FCR Motorsport and FCR Motorsport Teams cars, have been fairly dominant this season. Have we actually had them running as a 1-2-3 before?
I do believe so. I think there's been a couple rounds. I think Malala, that may have even happened in one of the races. And at Queensland Raceway, that may have happened as well. I do think it's happened, but I can't remember off the top of my head.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I couldn't recall it either. I don't doubt that it has happened, but still a pretty good accomplishment. Granted, they are the only three-car team, aside from if
Four-car.
you
Well, they're two
four-car
two-car
team.
teams,
Two
but
two-car teams. The only other team at that number you could really, I suppose, count is the technical alliance between Outward Racing and the Playboy Racing cars. But they're the only team out there capable of achieving a top three shutout. So, yeah.
yeah, I think that has happened. As we see, again, Williams very, very consistent. 56.5 for him. He's, in fact, he's edged away on that last lap by a couple tenths over Foley. So they got 1.9 seconds with under a minute remaining, plus the extra lap. And it looks like Ross has edged away as well from Nether Elmian. He's got 1.5 in front of him, and he's 1.6 behind teammate Brenton Foley. But I think Nether Elmian, though, he's probably got to just remain focused because he's got Turmo now under a second. It was 1.3, but as they crossed the first split line, he's lost almost half a second, lost 0.4 of a second, and Turmo looking to steal P4 right at the death.
It's going to be close, but I reckon he could never has, in that last lap, he has lost the pace of the lead trio. And Tomo's known to just keep fighting. He's almost a bulldog of it in some ways. He lets his fight do the talking rather than his bark.
Yes.
That makes sense.
He's set pretty close to a personal best on that last lap, about a tenth away, while Nether had lost a couple tenths, and a bit scruffy through turn one this lap as well for Nether. So I reckon that gap might come down just a little bit more. So you see a number of the FCR drivers just locking up at the hairpin. In fact, Nether having a good first second, actually gaining a tenth over Turmo, but still nothing in it. There will be 28 laps, so time has expired, and the next lap will be the final one, with Matt Williams currently 1.6 seconds in the lead. Make that 1.5 as they cross the second split line. And around this track, that is quite a margin. It is, the real point to navigate here is through the first couple corners, which he has done. So from here, we should see Matt Williams take the victory. Foley will push as hard as he can, get down to 1.4, but he's not going to be close enough. Brendan Ross, a bit distant in third. He's got a little bit of a gap over Nether Elmian, who has eked away from Turmo. He must have made a mistake in the turn one or final turn there, because he's now 1.7 behind Nether. Coulston, he's had a quiet race in P6, but he has avoided all the carnage which has engulfed the drivers around him, with Thomas Paul and Gary Neville, Cracker and Joyner all having run-ins with the wall, a gravel trap, or the grass. But Matt Williams did what he had to do, got his way through the field efficiently and without much fuss, and held off Cracker, and he will take race 2 once again, with Brenton Foley in second place, Brendan Ross in third, making it an FCR 1, 2, 3, albeit with Team Scrouse in second and third. Nether Elmian will pick up his second, fourth place of the evening, followed by Turmo in P5, which is a few spots better than what he managed in race 1, so he'll be happy with that one, and that'll put quite a big gap between himself and Steve Bolger in the mid-pack in the standings. Mike Coulston, P6 in the Sol Alfa Romeo. Gary Neville in 7th place. And Cracker in the wall, and Joyner in the wall, and they haven't finished yet.
No, I believe they have. Like, from what I saw, that was at turn 1, 2. So that might have. I don't think it was potentially.
Yeah, it was.
I don't think it was a bit of angry driving, but I think that was potentially. No, they were both clear of each other on the track side.
Yeah, they're both finished.
They're both
finished.
Expressing some disappointment with their races.
They're both frustrated. Obviously, Cracker running in the lead for a large portion of that race, and then running off the road when trying to get the lead back from Matt Williams. Steve Burko will finish in 10th place, with Glenn Miles a lap down, the last of the finishers in 12th, with Thomas Paul, our only retirement.
Yeah, so now we've got the FCR, most of the FCR boys, I wouldn't say all of them, most of the FCR boys practicing the trademark TCR reverse doughies on the back straight.
No, they're all there. They're all there and on the stream. Reverse doughies and plenty of...
I was going to say there is a couple of I can't pick who that is, and I don't want to say who it is to sort of embarrass them, but somebody is taking the easy option out using the grass rather than the tarmac.
There's nothing wrong with using the grass. Either way, all of them doing doughies. Good result for the team, or for both teams. Taking, once again, both of the races, albeit with different drivers. Alright, Rody, well, it was a fairly action-packed evening. We'll see that second race there. Who would be your driver of race 2?
I was going to say Cracker until, whether that was pressure or whatnot, he did still make a pretty crucial mistake there, which put him out of the order. I'd lean also towards Mike Coulston, but I know we missed it on stream, but he did actually cut off incidents beforehand. I reckon I'd say Nether, because he was the first finishing guy who still had both bumpers on his car. And we know how light these bumpers are when it comes to damage and falling off the car. So, he managed to dent the bumpers, but not break any bumpers. So he was racing hard, and he was racing quite hard. He was blocking and diving and doing everything he could to try and hold his spots on. But he wasn't doing it to the point where he had to make use of the extremities of his car in order to make a pass happen or not happen. So it was a great drive by the three FCR guys. I'm not disputing that. But I think Nether, in his ability to drive these things hard but cleanly and finish up in fourth, does it for me.
Yeah, it was very, very solid, obviously in race 1 and in race 2, but just lacked that little bit of pace. He needed a tenth or two to really, obviously, find himself battling for probably ultimately a podium position in the end. For that second race, I think Matt Williams probably, for me, driver of that second race. He had to get a decent start and make up a couple positions and sort of separate himself between obviously himself and obviously Brenton Foley and Brendan Ross, who were quite quick in the first race. He was able to do that. Was able to get by a couple cars while his teammates sort of faltered a little bit, and then was able to get past Cracker, then stay in front of Cracker, and then all he needed to do was just not make a mistake in the end, which he was able to do. So for me, he's my driver of the second race. And, we've been joined by a couple of the drivers now, so time to, I think we'll cut off to Brendan Ross. So, Brendan, solid evening out here at Brian Walsh Plains.
Very solid evening of Brian Walsh Plains, so just glad we were able to stream it.
Oh, well, you're telling me. Computer didn't melt, and we're able to show some quite decent racing, because up and down the field in both the races, there was some quite heavy battle packs obviously forming, and you were involved in a couple of them there.
Yeah, I don't know about the first race. It was quite good between us three, but the second race was definitely a lot more of a challenge compared to other tracks. Just the limited overtaking zones there sort of made it very interesting for I know at least the three of us, Foley and Williams and myself, to get through, which was quite fun.
Yeah, that first race there, obviously yourself and Williams battling quite hard in the in that first race, especially in the opening sort of few laps. Did you guys ever consider maybe a bit of team orders and holding station just to allow you guys to break away from Brenton Foley, or is it just no holds barred and just try and just regain the lead as soon as possible?
There wasn't any talk of a team order there. I think it was a bit of a pack for us not to be side by side through a certain section of corners, but other than that, it was pretty much just fair game to us.
Certainly was, and obviously you took out, so you're going by memory now, you did take out race 1, yeah?
From memory, I did.
Yes, well done on race 1, and then race 2 there, you weren't able to obviously scythe your way through the field quite as quickly as what obviously FCR normally do at other rounds, as obviously Brian Walsh Plains provided, well, a much more difficult challenge in getting by, and then when you did get by, staying in front of cars that you may have been slightly faster than.
Yes, I think the most difficult of them was Nether. He's been known, I think, in the last couple of rounds to be pretty tough to pass, and that he was. So credit to him. There was a couple of interesting rejoins that I've noted, so I just want to look at that. But other than that, it was pretty clean all round.
Yeah, there were a couple that we did notice on the stream that they're making a moves, perhaps a few places in front, that they did rejoin in front of you and sort of did balk you just a little bit that you had to get out of.
there may have been some opportunistic lights flashing. So
Any opportunity to click that headlight button.
you got to show the love.
All right, well done on your win in race 1 and podium in race 2.
Thank you.
All right, well, we'll cut to he didn't win a race.
Whoa! Whoa!
He didn't win a race. Who'd have thought? Brenton Foley, how's it feel to not be a winner?
Feels a bit weird. But, no, it was a tough track tonight.
Well, it is the Brian Walsh Plains. Obviously, you didn't have a stream for Brian, and that is why you didn't win.
Yeah, I think that's what it was. I didn't post a comment because I don't even think he commented. But yeah, I just made a couple of mistakes tonight that caught me off guard, and I kind of got away with. I think they were both the exact same mistake, and it was a combination of locking the fronts whilst I think not blipping hard enough. So when I downshifted, it just didn't like it.
Yeah, we did see. In obviously race 1, you had two pretty much, as you said, identical sort of accident coming into turn 1. The first one you sort of got away with a little bit with you hit sort of the rear end and the side of the car. It did obviously drop you a lot of time and took you out of contention. Did it cause too much damage?
It felt like it did, but it wasn't. It was a little bit left hand down, but it wasn't too bad. I just didn't have enough confidence going into the corners because it felt a bit lazy after it, but it could have been the tyres as well.
Yeah, and then obviously that's the one in the second race though. That one looked quite big. Did that have a bit more of a obviously feeling of damage towards the car? Because that was quite a big hit and it was front on.
It actually was pretty much the same. Again, I just had a slight amount of left hand down. I thought when I hit the wall in the second one that it was game over because, as you said, it hit a lot harder. It hit directly on the front. I was half expecting the engine to be gone or anything, but it looped around. I looked down and it still had revs, so I just kept on going.
Yeah, and still, yeah, with that, despite the big hit, if it was one of those Super V8s, it probably would have blown an engine from that, but this mod thankfully being a little bit more forgiving and you're able to pick up a podium result in the end.
Yeah, I was really happy that I managed to fight my way back up to the podium. As you said, I didn't win a race tonight, but my goal for this season was to try and be on the podium for every single race, and touch wood, so far so good.
Yeah, you are looking the goods at the moment. See, we will see after this round how the points standings shake up, but you've certainly got one hand on the championship trophy, it seems.
Yeah, hopefully got to finish all the races that are coming up. I think it was 2 rounds to go. And hopefully I can just stay consistent and keep going.
All right. Well done on your podiums this evening, and good luck for the rest of the season.
Thank you.
All right. Well, that's all the drivers in here. Unfortunately, no Matt Williams or any other drivers have jumped in for a chat. So we'll just have a look at the calendar for the rest of the season. As you can see, we've been through Eastern Creek, Phillip Island, Malala, Queensland Raceway, Winton, and now Symmons Plains, or Brian Walsh Plains. So, 2 rounds to go, and they're quite historic circuits in Australia, with Sandown being run and won by Honda in real life. But I think this time out, it should once again provide some good racing, Rody.
Yeah, Sandown's an interesting circuit to take TCR cars too, because you tend with the sort of power levels they've got and the grip levels they've got, these cars are built for handling circuits. Sandown is not a handling circuit. Sandown is the circuit where in IP all you need is 700 horsepower and the ability to not turn at all to win a race. So it's interesting to see. Obviously, all the cars have the same hampering. So I'm interested to see. It's going to be a lot about how you get an exit out of turn 4 and the last turn. If you rubbish an exit there, you've got the whole length of a drag straight basically to just cry over it as you watch everyone stream past you.
Yeah, I think the big thing, as you said, the exits out of turn 4, the final turn are going to be important, and then how you ride the curbs. We've seen in the supercars at AMS Oz last year, you can roll it at turn 2 and 3 at the chicane there, with the massively high curves. So you want to be able to use those curves, but you don't want to roll your car, which I'm sure we'll probably see. And then at the top of the hill there, I think a turn 6 is the number off the top of my head. I think that's going to be a bit tricky in these TCR cars, but I think it'll be easier than what it is in the supercar. And then obviously you've got to pull it up for Dandenong Road as well. So I reckon it's actually going to be an interesting circuit for these cars. I reckon it's going to be similar to Symmons Plains, although there is more room for the faster guys to find a bit more time in a lot of the corners. So we'll probably see a little bit more field spread there. But it still should be a good round.
Yeah, I can see a lot of cars, Foley being an example, of attempting reverse entry at some point into turn 6. You need something with rear engine, rear wheel drive. You need to be on the power for stability. That doesn't work quite so much in these things. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised to see someone reverse entry that corner. And if anyone's going to do it, it's going to be Foley.
Well, it might make the championship interesting if he does it in both races. But for his sake, hopefully not. But yeah, I think we will probably see a car or two off there at the top of the hill. And then the final round at Adelaide. Obviously, they don't run there in real life. In real life, they're running at the Bend. But we're going to another South Australian circuit at Adelaide. And we have raced TCC there and it produced some really fantastic racing. And I reckon, even though it is a bit long and a bit big, I reckon we'll see some fantastic racing, I should say, around there this time out as well.
Absolutely, yeah. It'll be a good way to inaugurate our entrance to street circuit racing. But it is one of the least street circuits out there. It does provide you room for proper racing. So yeah, it'll be great to see those things. I'd love to see them flying across the turn 1, 2, 3 chicane and see what sort of speeds they can capture through. Was it turn 8? I think it is.
Yeah, turn 7 or 8 or whatever it is. Yeah,
turn 7 or 8. Yeah, that one. We know what we're talking about. Yeah, we're going to see what sort of speeds they get through there and how sideways they get.
Yeah, I think track cuts at the first chicane are going to be a big talking point for that round. Anyway, Rody, thanks for joining me in the commentary box for this one. And thank you to those that race this evening for a fantastic night of racing, and those that joined us on the broadcast. You'll catch us, as you can see on the screen, on November 18 for Sandown and December 2 for Adelaide. Thanks again, and have a good one.